Alright, hello everybody. This is your local idiot again. I had a thought. So, I was just watching or listening to news rather I'm driving my vehicle now, not the bus, but I was just listening to the news about the nutty ass kid that the latest school shooting, the umpteenth million school shooting in America. Thank God for freedom of the ability to own your own weapon of war. I spent time in the military and was trained on how to use assault weapons, machine guns, M16s, AK-47. We had to fire those at one point to learn the enemy's weapon in case we ever had to, I guess, grab them in combat or something. But anyway, yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know the difference between an assault weapon and a non-assault weapon, I don't care what people say. I know better. I was trained in that stuff. When I was in basic training, anybody that knows the Army knows this. In basic training, there's 3 levels of qualifying with a rifle. And the lowest one is marksman. That's you barely qualified enough to be able to be in the Army. Okay, you're not allowed to not qualify with a rifle, with an assault weapon. And so marksman is the worst, sharpshooter is the next up, and expert is the next up. When I was 17 in basic training, I got expert. And the reason is that I grew up around rifles and hunting and things like that. So I've always been comfortable with those things because I was taught how to use them by my father, who was a good man and who wanted to make sure that his kids knew how to feed themselves if there was ever, a real situation where that they had to depend on themselves. I'm prefacing what I'm saying with this so that people don't think I'm some kind of ultra far left liberal nut job that doesn't know, the point of weapons. There is a point to war. There is I know people that hate the military and stuff. I think they're fools, because having the strongest military is the smartest thing you can possibly do, because the only people that don't get beat up on the block are the people that are the toughest. You don't have to fight people all the time to prove that you're the toughest, because the bullies know who the toughest is by looking, okay? That's how that works in the world too. China's never trying to push the United States out of its rightful spot. Russia's never trying to push the United States out of its rightful spot. There's a ton of nut job countries, North Korea, Iran, things like that are happy to mess with America because they would love to die in battle, apparently. All right, we've helped a lot of people along that way a long time, America has. Only fools and people that want other folks to raise their kids try to mess with the United States militarily. I'm very proud of my long family history of military service. Cold War, my dad was on submarines from the 50s all the way to like 1970. And I've told the story before how that all of his friends, basically, that he had at one time, all died at the exact same time because they were killed by... There's a really big controversy in the United States Navy, for anybody who knows anything about it. But the United States Navy to this day says that the USS Scorpion, which was a nuclear-powered submarine, sank in 1967. It took a year to find it. They found it 1 year later on the day I was born, interesting enough. And they're saying it was because of a faulty torpedo that was in the submarine. This is something they've said since then. And they have never, ever changed their story. Which means that the real actual story is still considered top secret, which is just stupid. Okay, I know lots of top secret stuff from when I was in the Army, because I was in a communications unit. In my particular MOS, it was a sensitive one that we had access to codes and all kinds of stuff, and so I understand totally why you shouldn't share top secret shit, but this one is a dumb one, so I'm going to share it. And it's not just me sharing this. It was shared many times because it was reconfirmed many times. The truth was, the USS Scorpion was sunk by the Russians, by the Soviet Union. 99 men, which was all my dad's friends at the time, were killed by the Russians during the Cold War. Now, they call it cold because we weren't launching, we weren't fighting in a field like the, World War II or something against each other. It was a Cold War because we were sinking each other's shit, I guess. And they sank the Scorpion because they believed we had just sunk one of their submarines. I've been told, who knows what the real truth is, but I've been told by a bunch of insiders that knew my father at the time, that were in the Navy as well, and that supposedly had a clearance as high as his, that we didn't even sink that sub. But that the Russians believed it, or at least the hardcore ones did, and so they ordered the sinking of the Scorpion, which was my dad's submarine. And it was pure luck that I ever got to know my father, because the sub, I guess maybe even pure luck that I'm here, because this happened in 1967, and I was born on Halloween of 68, and my dad was home, where all those other men's dads never came home. All those moms and stuff like that, and the kids, they were all waiting on the dock. The Navy didn't even tell them that it wasn't coming home. They knew it was missing. They had a giant search out there for it. Nobody told them. But that was confirmed later by people that wanted to basically switch sides. They wanted to leave the Soviet Union because it sucked and come to America where it was safe. And supposedly they lived out their days in peace. But they wanted to abandon their government, and to be allowed to do that, one of the rules was you have to tell us all kinds of shit. If not everybody could do that. So if you're a big military muckety-muck like up in the Navy or whatever, yeah, you're going to have to give us all kinds of secrets. Stuff that, only a traitor would ever do. But it's the price of coming over. It's the price of us helping you out. It's the price of us, getting you established and then keeping your identity secret so that the KGB doesn't kill you. Which I'm sure was a tall order. But they confirmed that, I believe it was Aldrich James, I'm not sure, but anyway, that had been selling secrets, and I think that's that FBI guy that had been selling secrets, and I'm guessing at the time it was stated, some people know a lot more about that part of it than I do, but that he sold secrets like codes. And so the Soviet intelligence people, KGB, whatever, were able to read our coded messages, or they just got way more specific information. But the bottom line is a traitor gave them information so that the Soviets knew exactly where the Scorpion was going to be, because it had been watching them in the Mediterranean anyway. Part of the Cold War, we were watching them and the Chinese like a hawk, and I'm sure they were watching us like a hawk. And so the Soviets decided, well, you're in our neck of the woods and you've been watching us and we don't like you, and we're going to get revenge for you sinking a submarine, which we supposedly didn't even do. And so they knew right where they were going to be, when they were going to be there, because they were apparently interpreting these messages and they had the codes for them. And they sent a special helicopter from one of their ships, I guess, which had torpedoes on it. And there's no way, no matter how good you are as a submarine, that you can know what a helicopter is doing, because you're out of the water. And they were surfaced. They were doing a communication thing. They had a check-in that they had to do on a scheduled basis. And the Russians sank that submarine and killed all those men on board, just because that they thought it was possible that America sank one of their submarines, and according to my father, it wasn't the case. So the Cold War was about the Russians killing Americans, and the Americans having to constantly be on point to watch. The Russians tried to put nukes over in Cuba, which is right in our back door. I mean, and I get totally, we've been putting nukes in Germany and stuff right on their back door. But the idea in America, at least, we were never trying to expand or take them over. But they had always, and to this day, look, they invaded Ukraine. Ukraine used to be one of theirs. And then when the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine, like a whole bunch of other countries, said, no, we weren't always yours. You made us be one of yours. And so now we're leaving again. Well, Chechnya was one of those countries. They've made Chechnya go back. And there's been never-ending fighting over it ever since. And now they're doing it to Ukraine. And so they're a bully. They're a thief. They steal land. They kill men, women, and children to get what they want. That's what they've been doing. Killing men, women, and children, old people, and everything else just to get some land that wasn't even theirs, ever. They stole it at one time, and then the people that lived there took it back. And now they're trying to steal it again. So I'm saying this part of what I'm saying is, who in the fuck are these Trump supporters that talk about they want Putin, or that they support Putin because Trump supports Putin, or that they would take Putin instead of Biden? You traitorous sons of bitches. When my dad was in the Navy all those years, and cousins of mine that were in submarine corps at the same time in the Navy, they only had to learn one little bit of language besides English, and it was Russian, just in case they ever got taken over or boarded by the Russians. Well, why wouldn't they have had to learn Chinese or Portuguese or who knows what else, any other languages? Just Russian. Because the Russians have been our enemy ever since the end of Cold War, the World War II, because they wanted more and more and more, and they've been more of our enemy since the Soviet Union collapsed, because desperate pieces of shit like Putin, who was in the KGB, who is like our number one nemesis. The CIA is ours, KGB is theirs, and those two have never been friends, okay? If anybody kills anybody, it's those two, right? And some so-called Americans these days say that they support Putin, they support Russia, because Trump supposedly supports Putin and Russia. Let me tell you something right now. Anybody in America, any American that supports Putin or Russia is a traitor, because they are diametrically opposed to everything we've ever stood for as America. We're the only country, we're the first country, first off, that allowed free and fair elections. You can say all you want to about conspiracy theories, and I'm sure half of them are true. I mean, it's not really about political people against political people. It's the rich against the poor. And that is the oldest story known to man. The rich against the poor. And the rich happen to be Republicans these days. That's why the Republican Party does not back unions. Because there's go back to movies and things that you read or whatever about when unions were starting. Factory owners hated unions, because factory owners could do anything they wanted until everybody unionized. Some smart mouth out there, according to the factory owner, got everybody together and then even passed laws saying it's legal and that they're protected and stuff. And that's why Democrats, who have always been about labor is us. Labor is not the rich people. Labor is the poor people. We're the ones that work. The rich people that own the factories and that had the money to send their kids to college back in the day. Now we all get to go, but still we end up in debt for the rest of our lives. But aside from that, I'm not going to even get started in that. I've been going to college since 2019, and it's 2024, and I'm still freaking going to college, and I'm, I don't know, $38,000 in debt, which I'm really, the reason it's only $38,000 is because I'm a member of I have a scholarship from the military. It's called the Heroes Program, and it pays, I added it up one time on paperwork I looked at, it's paying me like $12,000 something a year. You know, it pays my college, $12,000 and something a year. If it wasn't for that, I'd easily double what I owe at minimum. Okay, let's not get me started on that. I'm an idiot. Nobody wants an angry idiot on their computer or cell phone. So in case you didn't get it already, in case you haven't been listening, or in case you don't understand the vibe, if an American supports Russia, if an American supports Putin, let me be clear about this. They are no patriot. Unless there is such a thing as a patriotic Russian, okay? A patriotic Russian is a person that supports Russia. They're Russian, right? You know, I have a brother-in-law, he thinks I hate his guts. I do not. My only issue with him was that he turned into an alcoholic, and it was messing with my sister. Otherwise, I admire him. He's a good guy. He's a younger guy than me, but he's a good guy. But he was a Russian, born in Russia, lived in Russia, left when he was 17. His parents, were solid Russians, but they decided to leave a long, long time ago. This has been probably the 80s, because it really, really sucked in Russia. That's why the Soviet Union collapsed, because President Reagan, our Reagan, played chess with Yeltsin and a few others, this arms race thing. They were concerned that we would have more arms than they did. When I say arms, I don't mean, with biceps. I mean, nuclear weapons, that kind of crap. Because they were always thinking about taking over the next country. And eventually it was going to wind up on us. With NATO, if they messed with Germany, who's in NATO, we'd have had to go. If they'd have messed with Poland, we'd have had to go. With NATO, if you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. So then we're required by law to go. We're helping Ukraine right now, even though they're not part of NATO, but it's because if we allowed NATO to Russia to just roll over on Ukraine like they've done before, do you think they'd be done there? No. They would be doing the same thing to Poland, Belarus, Germany. If they mess with Poland, we would immediately have to go to war. America. We'd have to send troops. The 82nd Airborne would be gone. The 101st, they'd be gone. They'd all be in Europe. Guess what happens when that happens? Everybody and their uncle is crying because their kids and their nephews and their cousins are dying in war. We've just experienced over a 20-year war, okay? How'd we get there? Republicans, okay? I am a real actual patriot. I grew up in a family of people that risked their lives constantly. My dad was a submariner for 12 years. Every time he went to work, even if nobody was shooting at him, if he was going below water, he was freaking risking his life, all to protect us, literally to protect us. Them watching the Chinese, who are constantly trying to expand. Now they're trying to take Taiwan. They want to anyway. And the Russians, who are constantly trying to expand, they're doing their thing. They're doing their best. The only thing that prevents them from doing that kind of stuff is America. Why? Because America puts a great emphasis on having a really awesome military. And even though that's bad in a lot of ways, that we have to be that way, I was at one time the toughest kid in my school. Now, not everybody knew that, But the other tough kids, they knew it. And I made sure to know that they knew it. And I didn't have to advertise to everybody. I didn't have to tell everybody. I just had to tell them. And I just had to face them down. And occasionally I had to whip one of their asses in front of the rest of them. That happened at every school since grade school. And that's not about me being awesome. It's about me not wanting to kiss people's asses just to go from day to day to day. And that's America. We don't have to kiss anybody's ass. When Americans go abroad to visit and stuff like this, dipshits like that think twice about messing with us, because then they're going to have to deal with the rest of us. You mess with one American, you mess with all of us. NATO's that way. You mess with one NATO country, you mess with all of us. Not just America, but America for sure. This thing with Ukraine, if we allowed them to roll over with Ukraine like they're doing, they're steamrolling, trying to, we would be sending American soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, maybe Space Force, I don't know. But we'd be sending those people into combat. And they wouldn't just be going into combat. They'd be getting killed too. We'd be killing more of them, but they'd be killing lots of us. And anybody who doesn't know, my whole family's military, so just like my little brother is still in the Navy right now in an intelligence unit. I'm still plugged in to what our military does. I've got lots of friends that are in. I've got some people I care about a great deal who spent their whole life donating their time and intelligence and effort into our superiority militarily. We're not superior to anybody other than the fact that we make sure that if there's going to be a fight, we'll win it, period. The stuff that we just went through in the Middle East, if anybody, okay, this is another one. If anybody believes that that's the level of our capability, you're misinformed. We brought to bear what we were interested in bringing to bear in the Middle East for that fight. It didn't take any of our big technology. We tried out a lot of our technology like a laboratory there. A ton of it nobody even knows about, because that's the neat thing about some of that technology. And if we don't want them to know, they don't know. We got stuff in mothballs in storage, and it's being practiced with on a regular basis all over the world, because that's what we do. That would be very surprising, even to a lot of tech people. A lot of tech people sit around and imagine, and they read popular mechanics and popular science, and they hear little whiffs of it now and again. But I'm here to tell you, there's some really interesting shit that we've got that's way past. I mean, we're really, really impressed with shit that we hear about that was new 30, 40 years ago. Technology doesn't work like that. It increases exponentially. So the things that we were playing with 40 years ago and that we've made public now, we can make those public all we want to, because they're nothing. They're absolutely nothing. Night vision? Psst, give me a break. That's nothing. That's not a hardcore technology, but it is a technology that most of the world doesn't have. Yeah, it makes us over and above what a lot of people have. I mean, the most current technology that is available to the public is literally 35 years old and costs, and you can buy a pair of night vision glasses, for $30,000, but we would never make it available, and we would never make it something you would even know about if it was something that was the cutting edge of our technology militarily. Our soldiers and Marines, and just so you know, like Marines, the Marine Corps is, if you were to draw a pie a round circle, and then you started cutting pieces to represent the different sizes of the military. The Army is over half of that pie, well over half. The Marine Corps is a diet piece of pie, comparatively size-wise. And the Marine Corps are badass. I mean, hey, listen, I had choices. When I originally went into the military, I wanted to go in the Marine Corps, but I got conned into doing something else. And I'm glad I never went to the Marine Corps, because the fact was that they have a terrible contract system, or at least did back then. I don't know what it is now. But, they could choose what you're going to do, and I didn't want that. I wanted to have more choices than what I did. The Army had an actual contract system that mimicked real normal contracts in business. If you made 3 choices, like first, second, and third priorities, and if they couldn't give you one of those, you could just get out, because it would be breach of contract. There was no other branch of the military in America, and as far as I know, still to this day, that's that way. And that's why I chose that direction. But the technology that's available to the United States Army and Navy, and some in Air Force, but it's still, for the Air Force, still very limited to avionics, aircraft, things like that. But the stuff that's available to the Marine Corps, compared to the Army, is minuscule. The Marine Corps has some really interesting stuff that most people don't know about, but it's stuff that they've been playing with for 20 years. 20 years. I mean, they just started issuing silencers to weapons, and when I say silencers, really mean suppressors, but the whole point is silencers. It's to make weapons quiet to just every Joe Schmo Marine on the battlefield. I mean, it's a no-brainer. We should have done that a long time ago, because 8 million people have gotten hearing loss or whatever like that from being in combat, and we're just now figuring that out, that hey, maybe if we have a unit that's shooting at people and stuff, if not everybody in the damn area can hear it, maybe that'd be a good idea. Duh. So anyway, that's the lightest, tiniest little thing, but there's stuff that's available in the U.S. Army that looks like some kind of space show. And it's something that it's not new. It's something that's not something we've been trying out and experimenting with. It's stuff that people have been training with for years and years and years. When we go up against Russia, who is so behind the 8 ball technology-wise, when we go up against China, you think China has a lot of technology? Every single thing they've got, they have just stolen from us, and then they duplicate it as best they can. And when I say they've stolen it from us, they haven't stolen the gear. They haven't stolen the actual technology. They stole plans, or somebody was in the military and then told them about something. But they have no idea how to operate or how to remake it. They're not de-engineering, reverse engineering stuff. They're just guessing how to make something that they heard that we have. Anybody that knows anything about technology knows that that's crap. So the Russians and the Chinese are not prepared to go to war with us, and they all know it. The only thing that the Russians and the Chinese have at all that would even make them, like China is a near peer, what's called a near peer, and the only thing that they have at all that makes them a near peer to us is 2 things. They have numbers. They have lots and lots of bodies. They can sacrifice lots and lots of people before they have to start worrying about losing a war. But that would happen very, very quickly, and they know it. That's why they haven't been messing with us, because even though they want to expand really, really bad, especially into Taiwan and little things like that, they're not messing with us. Why is that? It's because they know better. They haven't been able to steal enough of our technology to duplicate it. They don't innovate for themselves because their system of government is literally prohibitive of mass innovation. Our system of government, which is another thing that beat the Soviets, our economic system, encourages really, really smart people to take chances. They get loans, they get grants, and then they take chances and they experiment. And, you know, the worst thing that happens is they lose money. And if they do, that's okay. Our government wants people to come up with new and neat ideas all the time, and so we cover it most of the time. And people get credit for their work. Those other systems don't, though. They don't encourage that. You know, the whole idea of communism was that the whole idea of it originally, it's a great idea. It just never works. That's why America's been opposed to it forever and ever and ever. Personally, first off, I know that the biggest reason America's been opposed to communism is communism wants to cut out the rich people and make everybody the exact same. Well, I guarantee you one thing, the rich people don't want to be cut out. And so the whole idea in communism is everybody's equal. It's just that some people are more equal. That's the rich people. They're more equal. That's why it didn't work for the Soviet Union. That's why they collapsed, because of rampant corruption. And that's why it's not working for China, because of rampant corruption. That's not why it works. It doesn't work for North Korea, because of rampant corruption. And nobody in those economic structures are encouraged to take chances and to innovate, because they don't get credit for their work. They don't become wealthy like they do in America. If they come up with a really awesome computer software system, they can't sell it to America. Okay? They can't sell it to China. China just owns it. They can't sell it to the Soviet Union. Soviet Union would just own it. In America, some really, really, really smart guy gets together with some other guys or gals, which happens all the time, and they come up with neat shit, and then they sell it to America. Our entire military complex is made up of lots of people like that, plus a lot of corrupt bastards. There's corruption everywhere. You're never going to find a country anywhere ever, not even Iceland. You're not going to find a country ever that doesn't have corruption. The question is, how much can you make it work? People that work at Walmart steal from Walmart. People that work at Target steal from Target. People that work at Kohl's steal from Kohl's. So it's the whole point of that when they're making a business plan, they bake in the plan that there's going to be loss from inside. Those other economic systems could not take that much loss from inside, and it's why they don't work. China has been very, very smart in that they don't try to compete with America on an arms race. It would be a foolish thing to do, because we would win every time because of our economic system. It's got a lot of problems. It's not fair. The fact that there are billionaires, in my opinion, is gross. All a billionaire is a person that hoards money. Okay? If you're a billionaire, it means you haven't been helping your fellow man enough. You know, all the things that they could possibly do for other people. Communism was, okay, a doctor is just as important as a garbage man, because a doctor heals people, that's great. But if there's nobody around to collect the garbage outside, what happens? Pretty soon, everything is caked in maggots and stink. Who wants to live in a place like that? And every place there is, no matter how beautiful and pristine it is, if you don't have somebody collecting the garbage, you are fucked. Okay? So it means that garbage men and people that handle like waste management are really important. They're just as important in communism as doctors. Okay? And so in communism, everybody's the same. The problem is, because of corruption, some people are just more the same, which means they get bigger privileges. You know, in communism, you get issued an apartment. You get it as a right to life. That's really great. But in America, if you want to get a nice house, you got to work for it. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck living in, look at all the homeless people. See, now the homeless people are out there are there to scare the shit out of the rest of the people that are thinking about quitting their jobs and doing nothing. Because for some people, having stuff isn't enough. Look at all the homeless people. Some people are homeless because they're mentally ill. Some people are homeless because they just don't have the ability. Like me, I got MS. I suddenly developed it. I was the healthiest person I've ever met, and then I developed MS. I had to stop my business. I had to literally close my business. Partly because of my first one was because of the '08 crash. Thank you very much, George Bush. My second one was because of COVID. But I had to, at the same time, I wasn't able to have I had two businesses. I wasn't able to have the original profitable business because I couldn't do all the work. But it would have been nice if I could have just said, I don't need to work. I don't have to ever work again. I just got all my bills paid. Well, that's not the way it works. So I had to go back to school. That's why I'm going to school, so I can learn how to operate a business with my mind rather than with my back. And I was a damn good worker. I could have outworked anybody that I ever met at one time. And I was really proud of it. I was too proud of it. Pride goes before a fall, usually they say. So anyway, that's this whole having to get an education has been a hard lesson for me, because I thought I was Superman, but Superman had to retire. Not able to do that stuff anymore. So now I have to be like everybody else and go to school and operate my business as a manager only. That sucks, by the way, if that's not your thing. And it wasn't my thing. But this whole thing about this school shooting, I am an expert with assault weapons. Expert. I know everything there is to know about them, except for the engineering level, okay? I practiced with one for 4 solid years. I got put on a high alert from the 5th week in my basic training. Thought we were going to be ending my basic training. It's supposed to be 8 weeks for Army. I thought it was going to be ending, and I was in the National Guard at the time. I thought my basic training was going to be ending. I thought I was told that I was not going to be going on to my actual job in communications, that I was just going to be automatically cycled into an infantry unit. I was going to get a quick crash course in infantry tactics, and that me and all my guys in my basic training platoon at that time was going to be shipped off to Iran. This is in 1986, the summer of '86. Of course, all of us had the serious butt pucker thing going on, like, oh shit, we're about to go. And we're still fucking with Iran. Anybody that tells me, or even I see, that says that they're a patriot and they're supporting Russia, or they're supporting a guy like Trump that is also supporting Russia, they're not a patriot. They're a traitor, an actual traitor. You haven't given secrets away that I know of. You haven't turned a rifle from the enemy back on your own guys, so you're not that kind of patriot. But you're the kind of patriot that tells kids our country is no good and their country is great. You should be one of them. That's basically, by your example, that's what you're telling kids. So it's a whole nother kind of traitor. I give you that, but it's just as dangerous, if not worse. So anybody that's ever held a position in any of our militaries that is a Trump supporter, or that supports Putin, God, whatever, you have broken your oath. And as Stephen King would have said in some of my favorite books, you have forgotten the face of your father. No honor whatsoever. Now, Donald Trump, I don't blame him. He was brought up, by the time he was in college, he was given $400 million by his father. His father really wanted to use it as a tax hiding place, But I mean, he had access to that money. And he had started businesses and stuff and crashed them all. Of course, we know that he did 5 bankruptcies. I have never done a bankruptcy. I've had 3 businesses. I've never declared bankruptcy. They all went into the ground. I used to own 25 houses all at the same time. My goal was 50. But with the '08 crash thing, I had a plan, a big plan. But with the '08 crash thing, I had to abruptly stop my plan. I had to sell my houses, all of them, at a loss. I barely got out from underneath them before they crushed me, because they would have, because of the '08 thing. What was the '08 thing? Oh yeah, George Bush Jr., who was the smart version of Trump. Let me, at the time I was embarrassed because of all the shit that George W. Bush was doing. Now I know some people are going to hate my guts after this, and I just don't care. George Bush is a decent man. A fool when it comes to politics, and a fool when it comes to business. But he's a decent man, human being. He has no integrity, but he is a decent human being, which means that he wouldn't have gone along with Trump shit. Lindsey Graham used to be a decent person, I thought. And when I'm singling out Lindsey Graham, it's because there's no others. There's nobody else. Mitt Romney, I voted against him in a presidential race. And he's turned out to be a by far more decent man than Lindsey Graham. Mitch McConnell never was a decent man. Lindsey Graham, we all know he's gay, okay? I got no problem with homosexuality. What I have a problem with is the preacher that says in churches, says gay people are going to hell. You're all going to hell, you rope smokers. And then it turns out they're gay. Now that pisses me off. Lindsey Graham was a gay, and he's never said a word about it that I know of. Okay, he is gay. And he's pretty much come out now, even. But he learned some really important lessons in life because he's gay, and he's in a big group of people that hate that stuff. So I think that's one of the things that turned him into a decent human being. But then he got tested once again. And he said everything that was normal, correct. He wasn't lying about Trump. But then when Trump became the nominee, somebody told him, probably Mitch McConnell's my best, but somebody told him, or maybe a bunch of people told him, hey, if you want to keep your job, this sweet little political gig, you better get behind Trump or you're not going to keep your job. And he probably said, well, I can't make a difference from the outside, but I can from the inside. And then all of a sudden, he loves Trump. And nothing Trump does is bad. That's what you call zero integrity. When you feel one way, but you tell people it's something else, and you're for sale. He literally sold his soul. God, that's fucking gross. I can say I'm really, really proud. I never got to see it happen like that level, but my father has had integrity. He went against the common normal thing and for his people in his location, and he went against that. And I'm sure a lot of people that he knew and that knew him didn't even like him after that. But that's called integrity, is when you do the right thing, even though it's not going to be a popular thing to do. I'm an anti-racist today. I have a Black Lives Matter wristband thing. I used to wear the t-shirts. I used to beg people to say something so we could have a talk about it. And maybe I could, have to change somebody's mind. Or maybe I was ready for this, but it never had to happen. I never had to beat anybody's ass over it. But the bottom line is, though, integrity is doing what you say and standing by what you believe. Mitt Romney, not 100% decent human being, but it turns out when the test came, Mitt Romney has passed, and he kept his soul. I'm not religious even, okay? But when I say soul, I mean your basic humanity. John McCain, I definitely didn't agree with a lot of his politics, but he was the last good Republican. He was the last one. And now all of them that are left are Republicans. If they like Dick Cheney's daughter, she took a stance, but it wasn't based on her conscience. It was based on the fact that Trump and people like him talked shit to her and about her. And so she then found her jawline and stood up and has never backed down ever since. Now, Lindsey Graham backed right down. Ted Cruz backed right down. None of them have a soul anymore. And the ones that do have gotten drummed right out of that party, which means that the people that are supporting that party, I wouldn't hire you. You know, when I had my business, if you know, when you're in the interview process and stuff, you're looking for people that you trust, people that you feel have good judgment, people that you feel are decent and stuff. If I found out that somebody was a Trump supporter, or even just, you know, I'm not just saying a Republican, because there's a whole bunch of people that are Republicans that are trying to take their party back, which is, you know, I admire those people. I'm not a Democrat, by the way, or a Republican, and I never have been. I just believe in being a human being. I believe in having compassion for other people, and I believe in having empathy for other people is a basic human requirement. The fact that the entire modern Republican Party has none of that, it's not just a red flag. That's like a fire, okay? That's like flares going off. And the fact that the people that are still in that party and still supporting that, and some of them even vocally support Trump, they are just lost. And I don't want to know any of them. I mean, really. I don't hate them, but they embarrass me as an American. I've had several people from around the world comment to me that they can't believe Americans are like that. And I'm like, listen, man, not all Americans are like that. The people that a lot of those folks saw during World War II come over to their continents and save their asses, or at least contribute to that, I think most of those people are gone now. I mean, like, and I don't mean literally, I mean, but people like that, I think that they've left. That whole thing has left the building, you know? I would love to have had a conversation with my father during all this time. But my dad died of a sudden heart attack in 1988 when I was 19, and he never got to experience, thank God, the turn, and he was a Democrat, lifelong Democrat. He never got to experience the turn that the Republican Party has taken. It would have made him feel even worse than I feel about it. Because at one time, I might not have agreed with people like John McCain or whatever like that, and there was a zillion people like that, I thought. The people that were Republicans, you know, I didn't agree with Reagan. I didn't agree with George Bush Sr., who I actually voted for. But at the same time, I admired them. They were good people. Ronald Reagan was a really good person, and he had integrity. A lot of people didn't like what he did, especially Democrats didn't like what he did. The weapons for hostages or whatever. But that was a quagmire that none of them would have wanted to be involved in. And he played a game of chess against the Soviet Union and won. But now, this whole thing about the Second Amendment and Republican politicians cashing in on what the American manufacturers of AR-15s are giving them, just to have the weapons out there so that we can have these assault weapons, because they are assault weapons. They might not be automatic, but they can fire a high rate of rounds, fast as you can pull your finger without jamming. And there's a fundamental design difference between that and a deer rifle. Okay? Nobody outside of a military trained, and I mean somebody who's took an oath and served, nobody besides somebody like that has any business having an assault weapon, whether it's semi-automatic or fully automatic. Nobody. Those weapons are designed for one thing and one thing only. It's not target practice. It's not a hobby. It's not for hunting, because actually those rounds do more damage to the meat than anything else. If anybody doesn't believe me on that, debate me, because I know more about it than you do, if that's the case. I have 2 hunting rifles. Neither one of them can hold more than 3 rounds, because that's the law for hunting. And neither one of them would be a really great assault weapon, because if I was able to load more than 3 rounds, they would jam after a little while. I have 3 pistols, 2 rifles, and a shotgun. And the best home protection is not a pistol. The best home protection is not your AR-15 or, an MP5 or some shit like that. It's a shotgun. And everybody that knows anything about guns, or at least somewhere around what I know or more, knows that the best home protection gun is a shotgun. Anybody else is playing Army. That's it. They're just children playing Army, and I am embarrassed by them. And I am really embarrassed and sickened by former military people that got to have those assault weapons around their children, letting their children have access to them unfettered, where that they don't have to, get with the parents so that they can handle them. I've got a bunch of friends from the military that have assault weapons, and they're locked up. The assault weapons, not the people. The assault weapons are locked up like they should be. I've got friends that have Class 3 licenses so that they can have all kinds of stuff, including silencers, and those things are locked up like they should be. Everybody else is a punk. So anyway, I'm home now. I just drove all that time, and I'm home now. And so I'm gonna leave that with you, that gun control is not how steady you hold your weapon. Gun control is making sure that the wrong people don't get a hold of weapons of mass destruction, meaning that you can't walk into a school and just start pulling the trigger until you're done. It's not a video game. This is life and death. Those machines of war are meant to be in war, not in your hands. And I was in the military, and I've got no reason to have that stuff. And that's why I don't own them. It's not because I can't afford them. It's because I've never needed one, other than when I was wearing a green uniform. So if you want to play Army so bad and have those kinds of weapons, join the Army. Join the Marine Corps. Otherwise, shut the fuck up. Goodbye.